Excuse me. How you doing? BK Black Krishna from ManpowerWars.com. We're at 4:42 p.m. on Wednesday, March 18th, 2020 in downtown Toronto, Canada. And I'm currently at Yonge and Dundas. And I'm promoting polite patriotism to help nice ladies and gents respect each other and teach kids to offline so we can all look, talk, and feel great about fun and serious stuff. And right now we're sort of in day 3, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, of sort of increasing lockdowns across mainly the Western world in relation to the coronavirus or Covid-19 pandemic. And, might be a good thing. Might be some of it might be overblown for money and control. We've got to be a little careful about that, but there may be some real virus concerns. But the point is people are supposed to be social distancing. They're supposed to respect each other and stay home and stay away from each other and so on. And instead, what's been happening for the last few years is people are acting more rude and sketchy and making each other uncomfortable, making it hard to be nice and look at and talk to each other, and running around, running near strangers, trying to force strangers to put up with them like mentally ill homeless people or pretend sketchy wives or girlfriends. And they'll run close to you and spaz out, force you to put up with them, or bump into you, rub up against you, try to force you to look at them for a few seconds. And that's bad enough when things are going great, but during a pandemic, where we should be politely acknowledging each other, keeping our distance, wishing each other well, crazy, eh? Yeah, have a good one, you too, Staying away from you. Said, there's many people that are going to be in isolation, acting rude and sketchy, making each other uncomfortable. And then from there, once they get out, running around shaking near strangers. And that could drag this pandemic on and on and on and on and on for months and months and years, because people can't simply politely acknowledge each other and stay away from each other, indicate they're not going to bother each other. Instead, they've got to sneak up on you, run close to you, and force you to see them touch their hair, wipe their face, wipe their nose, shove something in their mouth, wipe their nose, look at their toes, look at worked up, look at their body, look at their butt, and so on. So that's why I've got manforwars.com, because men can stop this. Men can make sure they respect each other and teach kids to, and then women and kids will have someone to respect, and everyone can communicate well. Otherwise, regular straight men discouraged from talking want you to look at them instead, but there's nothing to look at, no one to look, so they have to force you to. It's like, hey, fellow buddy, can't just relax and get attention. You put up with me. And so they sexually harass each other. They don't want to look at each other, to force each other to look at each other. And they don't want to look at each other. They jealously harass girls, try and steal attention. You're looking at some girls, some guys spaz out, look at me like that. And then eventually over time, it makes everyone sort of the same zombie. This worked up, put up with me, okay, you put up with me, and then spin around in circles, look for other people to bother. And so that's what's going on. And that's bad enough when everything's fine, but during a pandemic, when you shouldn't be running close to people, rubbing up against them or bumping into them to force them to see you get worked up and spaz out like a pretend bitchy, sketchy, or grumpy wife or girlfriend, if it is your wife or girlfriend worked up without explaining why, especially in public, you should figure that out. Say what's wrong, or hey, come on, we're in public, I know, let's talk about it later. Don't make it, but if no, it's just some random guy doing it, or girl or kid, it doesn't make any sense. And so that's why they wander around shaking near strangers, and that's not good anytime, let alone during a pandemic. And so what I'll do is I'll show you men can stop this. Regular straight guys, right, can make sure they respect each other, teach kids to, women and kids respect them, and then other LGBT, whatever, freedom, no problem, can fit into nice, polite ladies and gents and do what they want. No one's sort of selfish, narcissistic, ugly, stressful, and confusing, worked up, trying to barely force people to put up with them and running away. After they act, quietly ask it, and it's worked up, force you to see them touch their hair, wipe their face, shove something in their mouth, get worked up, look at their body, look at their butt, because it already makes people kind of quiet and uncomfortable and easy to control. But then during a pandemic, it leads to people making people uncomfortable, and then when it's hard to be near them or pay attention to them, running around shaking near strangers, trying to force strangers to put up with them. And that's bad enough in normal times, just to make people uncomfortable and quiet. During a pandemic, it's even worse. When you have people constantly running around shaking near hundreds of people or 1,000 people a day, bumping into them, just barely trying to force you to put up with them. So that's an issue, and that could drag this on and on and on. So what I'll do now is I'll show you here kind of what our response was when I was in the group called Toronto Truth Seekers back in 2009 to the swine flu pandemic, right? And here we are at 4:47 p.m. Wednesday, March 18th. You can see him sneaking up, trying to force people to put up with him, see him look ugly, make you uncomfortable. It's hard to be near them. So even during a pandemic, they still are running up, trying to sneak up near people, force you to see him act sketchy, force you to see him look ugly, make you both uncomfortable. It's bad enough when people are nothing bad happening, right? Someone's like, yeah, it makes us uncomfortable. Oh, bother your back. Oh, yeah, can't look at each other. Bother somebody else. Bad enough when nothing's happening. But during a pandemic, you shouldn't have people sneaking up on strangers, trying to force strangers to put up with them, making you both quiet and uncomfortable. But I'll show you kind of what we did, and I'll put video documentation in this below. You can see lots of video that we took from that time with trial truth seekers during the H1N1 swine flu pandemic in 2009. And that is, we had a table, we had about 15-20 people every Saturday for a few hours, and we had a bunch of posters and flyers and DVDs, and we set up right over there. This is before people were acting rude and sketchy and shaking near strangers and running away. This is when people maybe still had trouble talking about controversial things, but they weren't making each other uncomfortable, then wandering around shaking near strangers in good times or during a pandemic, you know, spreading whatever it is even more and more all the time. But yeah, so it was mostly polite Canadians. We were right over there, just Dundas Square here, just outside the Eaton Centre. We kind of set up right there, sort of in front of those doors, and it's about 15 or 20 of us. And this type of model can work anywhere, especially for men worldwide. And when it comes to sort of safety concerns, people can kind of stay far away from each other. They can stay far away from people that are looking for some info. And they can have some hand sanitizer or whatever in case you want to pass on a flyer or a DVD. Just put some crap in your hands to kill any viruses. And then you can hand those out. And so, you know, we did that there in 2009. Back in 2009, there wasn't quarantines and isolations when it comes to the swine flu kind of scare. There was people out and about. There was thousands of people milling around, you know, on a typical Saturday afternoon. And, you know, we as polite patriots would just have a little self-respect, mind our business, talk to each other, talk to people who want to talk to us, or not, your day. We don't bother you, don't bother us. And if you want to just take something to go, take a little flyer, DVD, piece of paper. We had these things, which I still have some copies of here. So they're dug out from the old files. So we were right there, and you see that still they're running around shaking near strangers and running away. Bad enough when nothing's going on, but during a pandemic it's even worse, right? They just run close to you, bump into you, force you to put up with them, run away after they make everyone close to them uncomfortable, acting rude and sketchy. And so, but they like being ignored, probably want to stop. I've got lots of videos, so that's people can work on that whenever. But I've got this bag here full of some things I'm kind of fishing through to show you kind of what we did back then. You know, we had stuff like this, right? So this little 2x3 piece of paper, sort of, you know, you can make 10 to a page or whatever, right? You can print them up cheap, you know, 5 cents a page, black and white. If we don't know, we have problems. If we do know, we have solutions, right? We like health tips, so we should know that all vaccines may cause brain damage from chemicals overstimulating our immune systems. All vaccines should be avoided, and new mandatory vaccines don't make sense. People who choose to take a, quote, swine flu shot shouldn't mind if other people don't, because their shot's supposed to protect them from the swine flu. Please visit vran.org for legal exemption forms, vaccinetruth.com, falseflagflu.com, and generationrescue.org, and please pass it on. Now, there's going to be some experimental vaccines, and people were worried about this even back in 2009 when it comes to the swine flu pandemic. And we did such a good job over there at Yonge and Dundas in front of the Eaton Centre, just about 40 feet or so from where I'm standing now in front of me, just right over there, that even CBC News came and covered us. They sent a cameraman and a reporter, and they hung out for a couple of hours, interviewed a bunch of people walking by, interviewed us, took shots of our table, and so we did a great job. And this isn't so much, you know, to say, well, you know, what are you doing, whatever. It's just to make sure there's an open dialogue, right? Yes, we need to be careful if there is a virus that's threatening or killing people. But we also have to be careful if there's corrupt people in charge that will use this crisis to take way too much control over us, get us all quarantined and isolated and living in pods like in the Matrix. And so it's dangerous when it comes to that, right? Or they say we all need to be tracked and searched and drugged and chipped, or everyone has to take a mandatory vaccine, or, you know, they've already had some issues when it comes to the tests not working, and, you know, it's nothing but, you know, old people dying, and these people already had something, so was it the pneumonia or the coronavirus that killed them? So, but this is what men need to stop, is made to make sure they stop acting rude and sketchy with each other, make sure women and kids stop acting rude and sketchy, then people won't make it hard to communicate, and then they won't spread the pandemic virus by running around shaking near strangers, rubbing up against them, bumping into them, trying to force people to put up with them and see them get worked up and spaz out, right? So that's an important thing. And so that's all sort of part of this. It's also like at manpowerwars.com. And everyone's fine with it. Men are fine with it. Women, kids are fine with it. Civilians, patriots, politicians, media, security, police, military, intelligence. They're all fine with it. They'd all be cool with it if men were more informed and empowered, and make sure everyone was informed and empowered where they were lived, so everyone could relax and feel better and know more and make informed decisions. It also makes even the mainstream media's job easier, because the more informed people are, the better stuff they get to cover, as opposed to stay inside, wash your hands, and stay away from people. It's like, what about vitamin C? That's good for the flu. No, shut up. We're not saying that. Why not? It's like, well, these are things we need to pass on. If the official channels are just saying, you know, stay away from each other and wash your hands, right? I mean, there's more to it than that. So informed and empowered people can sort of make that happen, and showing you our response, and men especially. Otherwise they go the other way. They make everyone a mess. They're a mess. They're making sure they're cool, other people are cool, where they are, where they live are cool. They make sure they're a mess. They force other people to put up with them being a mess, and you have to be a mess back, because it's kind of gross to just put up with them being a mess. And then once you mess with each other, you run around shaking near strangers and running away, bumping into them, rubbing up against them, trying to force them to put up with you or look at you for a few seconds, making you both uncomfortable, which is bad enough when nothing's going on, but during a pandemic, it's even worse when it comes to spreading sort of bad things in a pandemic. So that's an example. Looking more in my bag of tricks here, and you can see the videos below. I'll post a link to. You know, we also had a whole bunch of DVDs back in the day that we were giving away to many grateful people on a variety of things. A lot of people don't have DVD players anymore, but if you do, you've got climate change dangers, you've got vaccine dangers, and people are really worried about the vaccine. There's the weather, and so on. So men, wherever they live, instead of making each other uncomfortable by acting rude and sketchy, and making girls and kids act rude and sketchy back because it's too unpleasant to put up with men acting rude and sketchy, instead they can be informed and empowered, make sure everyone where they live is informed and empowered by politely and patriotically passing on info and making sure people can think for themselves, instead of making everyone quiet and uncomfortable and making it hard to think, and then running around shaking near strangers and making people uncomfortable, which is bad enough when nothing's going on, but during a pandemic could potentially spread the virus on and on and on. If you make everyone uncomfortable, and then you run around shaking near strangers all day, bumping into them, rubbing up against them, trying to force them to put up with you, then that's even worse, right? So so that is an example. You can make them big, you can make them small. You know, you can make them color, you can make them black and white, but anybody can do this, and I'll show you the proof of the positive response. Anybody acting crazy looks way crazier than you do if you're polite patriots getting together locally where you live and sharing info to give people a chance to think for themselves. Here's one on Canada 2009, what you need to know. Again, we were right there in front of those doors, just outside the Eaton Centre, Dundas Square, for a few hours every Saturday. And there's now for world government from the Financial Times. Now we're looking at the World Health Organization, UN, and all that taking over. And so, and there's in the back a handful of bullet points. In naturalnews.com, great health resource among others, right? And so if you get men locally where you live, instead of acting rude and sketchy, making everyone act rude and sketchy, and then running around bumping into and shaking near strangers and running away, making the pandemic worse and worse, and making everyone, you know, make it worse and worse, instead of being polite, acknowledge each other, staying away from each other. Instead, you can have people be more informed and empowered, instead of going the other way. Say, no, I got to make sure I'm cool, everyone's cool, calm down, don't worry about it. we're good. Said, oh, I'm a mess, put up with me. Oh, don't say anything, I'm embarrassed. You have to be a mess back. It's kind of gross to see me be a mess or be near me be a mess. So then people just make each other uncomfortable. They wander around shaking near strangers. So, and when people are in isolation and they're staying at home, instead of acting rude and sketchy, hey, put up with me, hey, I got you, forced you to see me, oh, got you, made us uncomfortable, oh, got you, put up with me. And then when they make each other uncomfortable and can't do much, they can't wait to run around and try and force strangers to put up with it. Instead of doing that, they can maybe calm down, chill out, and they can take a leadership role on that. Here's another classic blast from the past. It's the classic "Don't Get Shot" flyer. Right there, this cute little baby. And there's the 10 bullet points, each with a different website related to sort of news and the vaccine issue. And again, it was very well received. People were cool. We didn't bother them. They didn't bother us. They took something and left, or they were happy to discuss with us. And so people can locally do this and locally win the offline info war, right? Online is fine, but people are trapped in echo chambers. Sometimes people depend on those echo chambers, right? Even the most patriotic people are like, well, I need my subscribers, I need to buy my this and that, no problem. But then other people are in their echo chambers, and then offline we're turning into zombies because men are discouraged from talking, want people looking at them, nothing to look at, no one to look, force you to look at me, sexually harass each other, don't want to look, piss each other off, don't respect each other, can't talk, then jealously harass girls, kids, anyone nice near them, try and steal attention for them acting rude and sketchy, make everyone put up with and act like them, and then people can't communicate well and like running around shaking near strangers and running away, which sucks in general, but it's even worse during a pandemic where they kind of run close to you, force you to put up with them, make you both uncomfortable, don't make any sense, and then run away. Or they rub up against you or bump into you if they think it'll be really hard to get your attention to see them get worked up and spaz out. It's bad enough normal times, but it's even worse during a pandemic, right? So, so you get the idea. You get a little more sophisticated with it. It's a classic 9/11 truth dollar from back in the day, in mid-2000s. Gave out a bunch of these as well. Doesn't have to be plain black and white. You can make it more complicated. But locally winning the offline info war. Online is fine, or often centered in the digital ghettos, talking to like minds, spam comment sections, want to, put a bunch of whatever, anti-Semitic or anti-this or racist divide and conquer or whatever crap out there. And so it's not like real people talking to each other and coming to resolutions. It's more like blurting about what a mess you are online and then acting rude and sketchy and blurting about what a mess you are offline and running around shaking near strangers and make people uncomfortable. It's not good generally, but especially during a pandemic, very bad idea. So that's sort of what you got to beat. It's sort of the online's fine or censored digital ghettos talking to like minds. And then offline, you got to win the offline info war by making sure you can reach out to people outside of online kind of echo chambers, right? And so that's what we did successfully kind of there with a group called Truth Seekers. You can see the videos below for lots of proof. About 15, 20 of us hanging out, getting along great, getting a lot of people who want to get along with us or getting along great with other people by not bothering them. They didn't bother us. Mostly polite Canadians, right? So if you can do that locally where you live, then you can transcend the kind of online like-mind groupthink. You can respect some of the official information, but also question it, and also have informed and empowered people push back on any corrupt elements in it. Because frankly, the regular flu killed 35,000 people last year or whatever. This one flu's killed like 50 people, and we're all supposed to freak out, right, and go crazy. And plus, this could be used by evil people to sort of take control over us, right? Because it doesn't matter. It's like oh, new virus coming out. Everyone stay indoors, like the weather report. You know what I mean? It could become on and on and on like that if it goes unchecked. So we have to be a little bit careful when it comes to that. And we have to make sure that people can respect each other and communicate well, not just act like rude, sketchy zombies with anybody you can and make them into rude, sketchy zombies till everyone makes everyone uncomfortable, runs around shaking near strangers and running away, and then it's bad enough. Nothing's bad is happening, but during a pandemic it's even worse. So I'll put the videos below to what happened there at Truth Seekers, and now we'll take a look, walk back up Yonge Street. I'll put on my gloves because it's getting a bit too cold. See, they make everyone uncomfortable. They run around shaking near people. Bad enough in normal times, but even during a pandemic it's even worse, right? To run around shaking near strangers, bumping into them, trying to force them to put up with you, getting worked up, spazzing out. So that's something that men can help people stop, and they can get respect, and the women and kids can respect them, and they can respect each other, and people can communicate well, and teach kids and so on. So that was the idea. supposed to be turned to zombies, we kind of have to do whatever our overlords say. It makes it impossible to talk about anything else because you make it impossible to talk if you have to sketchy and bother people. All right. So there you go, and that was a good time. A lot of fun times before people were acting rude and sketchy. When it was mostly polite Canadians still had trouble talking about controversial stuff, we did a great job doing that locally. And you can locally win the offline info war wherever you live. Men can worldwide locally win the offline info war wherever you live. I've already tested it with millions of people in Toronto. Got all that on video at manforwars.com. Otherwise, I can't bother people. If you bother people, you lose your self-respect. You take other people's self-respect. You're a mess for yourself all the time, and anybody near you, anytime they're unlucky enough to be. And you can't do much. You run around trying to force strangers to put up with you, spazzing out, right? So that's the problem. So. So it's all good. As long as men can help people stop and everyone's fine with it, then it's just a question of interest, right? Even during a pandemic, they make people uncomfortable. You have to make them uncomfortable back. And then they run around shaking near strangers, trying to force strangers to put up with them, right? And that's a real issue in normal times. But during a pandemic, it's even worse. To run close to strangers, trying to force them to see you spaz out, or rub up against them or bump into them to try and force them to put up with you, right? Even when there's not a pandemic, it sucks. But during a pandemic, they could run around shaking near 1,000 strangers a day, as opposed to politely acknowledging each other, respecting each other, keeping it moving, maybe empowering each other a bit by being, hey, pretty cool, pretty crazy, sure is, have a good one, you too, you know? And so, but instead, that's what happens, right? So men can help people stop that, you know, regular straight guys, and they stop acting rude and sketchy with each other, and then women and kids will stop acting rude and sketchy, and then they won't make each other uncomfortable and then run around like pretend sketchy girlfriend or wife zombies that try and force strangers to put up with them and run away. Because it's hard to force people to put up with you getting worked up and bothering them. But again, they still try, and that is bad enough when nothing's going on, but during a pandemic it's even worse. If you make people uncomfortable, they make you uncomfortable, you run around shaking near hundreds of strangers a day, you're going to force them to put up with you. So that's what we're looking at, and that's a major issue here. On Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, downtown Toronto, Canada, at Yonge and Dundas Square, from manforwars.com, and that's why it's important. You know, it's important in general for people not to make each other quiet and uncomfortable and easy to control. But during a pandemic, it's even more important to not get worked up, bother people, and make them get worked up, bother you, because what else can they do? And then when it's hard to do anything with each other, run around trying to force strangers to put up with you. Run around shaking near them, rubbing up against them, bumping into them, trying to force them to see you look ugly, spaz out, be stressful and confusing, and so on, right? Doesn't make any sense at the best of times, but at the worst of times, it makes things even worse. So men can help people stop, which is fine. Everyone's fine with it. Men are fine with it. Girls, kids, they like being ignored, probably want to stop anyway. And what are you supposed to do? Some poor sketchy person shaking near strangers? You're supposed to bother him back? Supposed to bother somebody else nearby? No, it's nothing. Forget it. Politely ignore it. And then, you know, you feel better, self-respect, mind your business, don't be a mess for other people, right? Teach kids, don't be a mess, don't get involved. They feel better, they like being ignored, shaking near strangers, instead of making you both uncomfortable, making you both feel bad. Everyone around can relax and feel better. They know they can mind their business, or it's safe to be nice to you. Not that it's not safe to be nice to you. You're going to get worked up, bother them, make them uncomfortable for no reason, right? And so, or they can just mind their business, happy, and less people bothering each other, better and more. So that's the issue. Now, there's a big danger in people acting rude and sketchy at home. And hey, force you to see, touch my face, play with my hair, wipe my nose, wipe my face, look at me worked up, look at my body, look at my butt. I got away with it. I get away with bothering you. Run away. Don't say anything. There's danger between people doing that at home a lot, and then when they hit the streets again, running around like crazy. They can't wait to force hundreds of strangers a day to put up with it, right? It's bad enough when nothing's going on, but during a pandemic, it's even worse, right? Now, if these people could be polite Canadians who respect each other, if men could make sure, and people are fine with it, so no big deal, you know, I just can't bother people about it. But if men can make sure people respect each other, communicate well, teach kids to, then people can politely acknowledge each other and stay away from each other and generally look, talk, and feel good, but also not spread the virus and pandemic by acting like pretend grumpy wives or girlfriends, zombies. They get worked up, force you to put up with them, don't explain why, make you all quiet and uncomfortable, make you do it back, and then run around shaking near strangers. So that's the problem if this isn't as bad where you live, then you could possibly locally win the offline info war with polite, quiet people that typically don't want to get mixed up in this and that, but at least don't bother each other all the time, make them uncomfortable, then wander around shaking near strangers, trying to bother more people. It's not that bad. You can communicate a little better using more traditional methods. But otherwise, this is sort of what we're dealing with here, is sort of coronavirus zombies that even if there's a pandemic, they will still get worked up and run close to you and bump into you or rub against you just to force you to see them get worked up and bother you. They know you're not going to like it. They know it's going to be ugly, stressful, and confusing. That's why they have to try and force you to put up with them, trick you into looking at them, and they still do it. And that's a real problem. At the best of times, it's a problem. You make people quiet, uncomfortable, miserable, lonely, no one respects them. They always make people uncomfortable, or vice versa, you know. But at the worst of times, you're just spreading the virus more and more by making everyone uncomfortable, making them bother you back, and then running around shaking near hundreds of strangers a day and running away, right? So that's a big problem. So that's something that men can help people stop if they make sure they respect each other and teach kids to, and they take more of an active role in sharing information and make sure people are informed and empowered where they live, as opposed to making sure that they're a mess, can't say anything, they're either miserable or they're stupid or silly, and then they wander around shaking near people, trying to force people to put up with it because it's really unpleasant, and they make everyone put up with and act like it. It's kind of gross. You can't just look at somebody worked up and doing that to you, forcing you to put up with them. It's kind of gross. So you have to bother them back, and then once you bother them back and you can't look at each other anymore, then you have to run around shaking near strangers and running away. So bad enough at the best of times, but during a pandemic, the same people making people uncomfortable, making you bother them back, and then running around shaking near strangers could make things a lot worse for a lot longer, right? If they were polite Canadians, the same people, just politely acknowledge each other, stayed away from each other. Hey, pretty crazy, isn't it? Sure is. Have a good one. You too. Hey, that was it. But if they were like, no, run close to you, you're not going to like this. Rub up against you, bump into you, force you to look at it, you're not going to like this. Run away. If they just do that all day, that's a lot worse when it comes to sort of potential, potential pandemic spread and social isolation and social distancing or whatever, right? So that's a real issue. So men need to stop that. Need to get men doing something else besides bothering people, feeling sorry for themselves, making you bother them back. They wander around trying to force strangers to put up with them, like zombies, right? Making everyone put up with and act like them, right? Just make people quiet and uncomfortable, and then running around trying to force people to put up with them because it's hard to be near them and so on. It's really straight guys, nothing to look at, no one to look. Have to force people to look at them. It's kind of stressful and confusing. They can't do anything appropriate. If a girl does it, she can be inappropriate. She can switch to something appropriate. Because girls can be appropriate with regular guys, but guys can't do that. You can't just go up to a guy, oh, put up with me. Oh, what if I go slow? It sucks. Well, I'll force you. And so they make everyone, because they're discouraged from talking and being active on these issues, like I've got documented extensively at manforwars.com, that's what they turn to zombies who make everyone near them uncomfortable because they can't say anything. They want you to look at them being uncomfortable because they can't say anything, and then you have to make them uncomfortable back, act sketchy, and wipe your nose, look at your toes back. And then when you can't do much with each other, you have to run around trying to force strangers to put up with it. Run around shaking near strangers, bumping into strangers, trying to barely force them to see you look ugly, sketchy, worked up or whatever. And that causes problems at the best of times, but during a pandemic, it's even worse, right? So that's the issue, is that men can help people stop, and they can stop bothering each other and making people bother them back and making everyone rude and sketchy and uncomfortable, and they run around shaking near strangers, getting away with bothering people and running away. Then there's a chance that this could be mitigated a lot quicker, right? With polite Canadians who respect each other, just acknowledge each other. Hey, how's it going? Hey, keeping your distance. Yeah, pretty crazy. Yeah, have a good one. You too. Just not come close to you. You're not going to like this. Bump up against you, rub into you, try to force you to see, play with my hair, spaz out, run away. That type of thing is definitely going to make spread the pandemic more. If not just one rude, sketchy, mentally ill person was running around shaking near strangers, or you see one every few months, but if it's every few seconds you can see some poor sketchy person running around shaking near strangers, that changes the dynamic for generally people being happy where they live instead of going to hell, but also in terms of spreading a possible virus or pandemic when they get worked up trying to force people to put up with them and run away, and they do that hundreds of times a day with everybody near them, including hundreds of strangers, right? Bad enough if there was one poor, rude, sketchy, mentally ill person, made everyone uncomfortable, forced you to see them wipe their face, wipe their nose, get worked up, look at their body, look at their